Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Insightful Ramadan. You must be wondering, why are we here, standing in the kitchen? Because this is where the battlefield is. Do you know for what? For picky eaters. 14 to 50% of preschoolers are picky eaters. Let's discuss why. Welcome back. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. How are you, Fatima?
I'm good. How are you, Mahdiya?
I'm good, thanks.
It's been quite a while, yeah?
Yes,
and
it
I'm
has.
loving
Indeed.
today's discussion
Yeah.
that we're about to do, because I believe many of our viewers are with these little people who can then, make them run on their pinky fingers just
Yeah.
because of this issue.
Yeah.
So we're talking about picky eaters, but did you know what picky eaters are? Mahdiya, can you help us a bit?
Yeah. So basically, picky eaters are children who do not like to try unfamiliar foods and like to stick with just one or two varieties, and they do not like to explore different types of foods or the textures of foods, and sometimes it could be really stressful for the parents out there.
Did you know why this happens? Like, do you know that it's related to the time when the mother is pregnant?
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you know that there's a study that shows that the mother's nutritional habits whilst she's carrying the baby, the fetus, and her eating habits then kind of does pass on to the baby. You will see sometimes that whatever the mother was craving, the child eventually, when they are in the stage of growing up, they start eating that item more. The
I
item
see.
that she was craving. And many a times pregnant women refrain from vegetables. They just hate it. Maybe it could be smell or something, or you will see a child only eating chicken as meat item and would avoid eating the other items. But this also falls again on how the mom used to eat, because whilst it's growing up, and then when they develop the taste buds, that experience of the mother's nutrition habit then falls on to the child. But this was one study that shows that,
Oh, that's pretty interesting. I never knew about that.
Really?
Yeah.
But that's true. And I think many of the times when I counsel a child, a picky eater child, like whenever I'm counseling it, this is something that I always ask the mom is like, how was your nutrition habits? How are you eating when you were carrying the baby? You would see some kids are really addicted to sugar. Is because of the Coca-Colas and everything, like the sugary item that the mom used to eat. Yeah, so that's one of it. Well, one of the main reasons as well.
Okay.
Yep.
I see.
So how would you help a picky eater?
All right. So, before we find like potential solutions, because this is a pretty stressful thing for a lot of parents out there.
Yes, definitely.
So, before we find like solutions to this really big problem, feeding, be it a picky eater or, a certain feeding disorder, we need to kind of find a cause to it. What are some of the causes that could lead to this? So, I have come up with like 4 main causes, but there could obviously be more than that. So the 4 causes are oral motor skill, underdeveloped oral motor skills. The second one could be sensory issues to textures, taste, and smell. The third one is our environment. So in terms of the position of the child and the routine, the mealtime routines and the mealtime preps. And the fourth one is, like anxiety-induced food aversion. So like, behavioral problems or psychological problems as a result of like prolonged hospitalization or any reflux disorders that the child has, been through in the past.
So does it matter if the child was a colic baby? Does it fall under that category?
I don't know, you tell me.
Yeah, sometimes it does.
Yeah.
And because of the constant medication also affects the child's taste buds and, the digestive system as well. But before we jump onto the nutrition, would you like to elaborate the 4 skills that you told us about?
Yeah, so basically there are some solutions to these 4 causes, right? And the first and foremost with the oral motor skills is you could consider doing fun activities, fun exercise. This is from a point of an occupational therapist, so you know how our work is always fun.
Yeah.
So, fun activities like blowing whistles, candles, and bubbles, yeah, and some oral motor massages for the child to induce the cheeks, the tongue, and the lips, and the teeth, because these are the key things that you are looking to, improve in terms of chewing and swallowing of the food.
On that note,
right.
It's a cultural habit. I don't know, many of us can agree to it. There is something known as force feeding, when the child rejects and we clench the mouth, or maybe it's to, give him medication or something, but we are partially hurting the muscles around the mouth. And then we might be surprised, like, my child is not chewing properly or something like that, and then we have to, so on that note.
Adding to that, force feeding could also result, because of a behavioral problem.
Exactly.
So if you force feed your child, they may be less likely to, accept that food, because
like
they would.
Mealtime becomes a battlefield, and that is something that us mothers should definitely avoid, or even fathers.
I think it is a journey, definitely, and it's like a gradual thing, a gradual transition.
Yeah, of course, parents get frustrated as well.
And from my perspective, I think instead of force feeding, if you introduce the food that is unpreferred gradually on the table, for example, 2 preferred foods for the child, and 1 that is unpreferred.
Yes.
So the child is more likely to be more comfortable in that environment where they can eat what they like, but at the same time there's this new unfamiliar thing, and it's not doing any harm to them, and then gradually they will accept it. But it is not going to happen in overnight.
On that note, when we introduce food to our children, we should not give up because there was, because it refused the first time. The consistency has to be there of making it try all the time. And this is a solution as a nutritionist that I give out there, is that do not stop trying a certain food just because it was rejected. It can be rejected due to any other reason that we will further discuss. But this is one of the main point that I would like to say, is that do not give up and consistently keep on introducing that specific food.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah.
And the third point that I come to is environmental factors, things that we can actually control.
Right.
For example, the position of the child when they're eating.
Yes.
Ideally, a child should be sitting with their ankles stable, 90 degrees, ankles, knee 90 degrees, hip 90 degrees, and a good backrest and trunk support.
Okay.
For that, they are more relaxed, more stable, and so they can eat their food that you present them without making too much of a fuss. And the next thing is mealtime routines.
Right.
So I think we should provide opportunities for children to actually feel hunger. And that's something that a lot of parents do not take into account, because there's so much snacking going on like throughout the day, and so the child does not feel hungry.
Using food as distraction can also lead to eating disorders when they further grow up.
Yeah. So when the child does not feel hungry, they don't see the opportunity to eat a good meal together, because anyways they're they're
and another thing on that is a distraction giving iPads and tablets. I am sorry, I know we are in the time of
that is another factor,
but this really affects the child's whole eating sequence, eating hunger and fullness cues that we need the person, even you as an adult, to feel it on your own.
Yes, I think it's true that children should be active participants when they're eating the food that they're presented with.
Exactly, they should see it, touch it, smell it. Just like adults, because they're also little humans, but they are humans at the end of the day, the same kind of species that we're talking about.
And one more thing is, have you noticed that a lot of parents, when a child tries to make a mess or tries to eat themselves and gets messy, they suddenly, they get
the whole house
overwhelmed that, oh my God, don't dirty this place. But I think that is the way the child learns, by themselves to get comfortable with the food. So I think messy play should be something.
It also helps the motor skill of the hand as well, right?
Exactly. And just all these developmental milestones are being reached.
And that's the kind of exploring we need the child to do when he's eating by themselves. It's like, some bits may fall here and there, but then this is the best way it will start to love and like that food, because it got time to explore that food. So another point holding this point, I would give another tip, is that when you introduce your child to different food, and the children who that have issues in accepting really quick, offer like dips. Children like to feel dips or texture kind of thing. What do you have to say about texture?
Yes, so that brings me to the fourth point, which is hypersensitivity or undersensitivity to different sensations.
Yes.
That could be like textures, tastes, and smell of food.
Yeah.
And so today we can explore a little bit about how we can vary a texture of one certain food, and you can use it for different kinds of foods. So today we are going to see how we can transform a banana into so many different textures, and you could use it to like gradually increase the level of the child's ability to eat more solid foods if they have sensitivity to texture.
Wow, I would love to see
do you
it.
wanna
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Back to when I was saying that we can transform this banana into so many different textures. You could use this for so many different things like potatoes, rice, and
sweet
basically,
potatoes.
So basically, you're just transitioning the child from one preferred texture to another.
Yes.
So if you get a closer look, you can see that this is liquidized, this is pureed, this is semi-pureed, this is mashed, and this is a solid banana.
Yes.
So with the liquidized form, you could introduce the banana flavor. So for example, banana milk. And with the pureed one, you can use a blender to blend it to make it fine. So basically, what's the difference between the pureed and the semi-pureed? The difference is that this one is finely blended, so that even when you drink it with a straw, it can be drunk by with a straw. Whereas this one is just typically mashed with your fork, so just mechanically made, right?
Yes.
And if you see the texture over here a little closer,
it still has chunks.
You can see, it has chunks.
Yes.
So this ideally is like a good step to transition a child. And then the next one we go with mashed bananas.
Okay.
So cutting them into smaller pieces and then mashing them, and giving it to the child.
Exactly.
So this is like the child is going to be more likely to accept this after they've had this than compared to have this.
Yes.
Because they have seen how easy the transition is. And then finally we can go to eat a regular banana.
So before you haven't tried all these textures to introduce the child to a banana, do not give up. So this is where the consistency topic that we discussed comes in.
Yeah.
Personally, I would actually go through all the steps and then I would give up, maybe if I had to, the last resort.
Yeah.
But then of course we are taught sneaky ways to even get nutrition inside the child's body.
Can you tell me more about it?
Yeah, sure. So there is a very huge hack. So maybe a child does not like vegetables that are boiled and stuff right yet.
Yeah.
They put up a drama or the tantrum that we just don't want it, and then there is no resort. There is explaining, cuddling, hugging, everything is done, now the mama is like, you know what, I am just done. So this is where I step in, and the best hack is that you blend all the vegetables, and maybe the child loves pasta, so then we make a pasta sauce.
That's
so
smart.
You take the vegetable puree and you put it in the pasta sauce. They don't come to know about it. They're getting their vitamin A, B, C, you name it, and they're eating vegetables whilst not knowing. And because the human body is very smart again, slowly the child will get the hang of then eating vegetables. So this is what I would do with my children, and I have three children's experience, so you can count on me on that one.
I think another thing is also to make food more enjoyable to look at, right? Like having stars for sandwiches or like different stencils, that could help as well, right?
Maybe for those parents who do have time and effort, and we have to understand that not all parents have time and effort, but we could do something known as meal prep, just like for the adults. You can have star cut breads, or these days the bakeries are also advancing and they do give children friendly baking items.
Like we also have Ramadan stencils for like different sandwiches.
I know, right? So you can like use these equipments, and trust me, the eating time will become so much easier for all of you. And talking about meal prep, when you prepare your meal prep list, what you want to give the child, we're talking about children who can evolve in this kind of stage. This is like 3 years old and above, who have certain understanding. You should involve your child. I highly recommend this as a nutritionist, that involve them so they have an understanding about food, different food. They have, it also builds their psychology of choosing and saying I want and I don't want. And many times we are just like forcing children. No, this is the menu set, but involving them in it also helps picky eaters on a larger scale.
I see what you
Yes.
mean. Yeah.
Okay.
So here are some of the tips, that we can implement in our lives, with our
Yes.
children, and make feeding less stressful for
Yes.
all the parents out there.
And before we end the topic, the last few tips as a nutritionist perspective that I would give you is that when we spoke about involving your children, they all have a certain cartoon character or a certain show that they absolutely love. And to linking to that cartoon character can actually make them want to eat whatever you put in front of them, just like this banana. I'll just tell my daughter that Dora loves bananas and this is Dora banana, and she would gulp it down. Why? Because it's first of all linked psychological to her favorite human on earth or a cartoon character, and she's likely to accept it and
more
eat
easily,
it.
yeah.
Yes, so this is also another hack that you can try, and we really hope you enjoyed the session. And now mealtime will become fun time rather than a battlefield.
Until then, see you next week.
Stay tuned every Tuesdays and Thursdays. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click on the bell icon.